Good morning and welcome to Sports Central, brought to you live and exclusive on Spectrum Television, all the way from the beautiful hills of Ibiakere in Gochun State, Akwa Ibom. My name is Infornity and I'm quite excited to be back on your screens. A lot of sports stories to look out for. We'll talk about basketball, where the Nigerian Basketball Federation has released the headline squad for the Nigeria's FIBA Women's World Cup qualifiers. Lady Ami Okonkwo, as well as two other predominant ladies who play in Europe, lead the squad. We'll also look at what's happening in tennis in the Mexican Open in Acapulco. Would go to Chile as well, where we have the Chile Open, as well as Dubai, where we have Dubai duty-free championships. Would also touch a little bit of basketball, where this morning Spurs cut the gap between themselves and the NBA best side. Talk about Oklahoma City Thunder with a win against their opponent. Well, the Oklahoma City Thunder lost this morning to the Detroit Pistons. We'll also look at football, where we had the Champions League playoff, or playoff leg 2, where Real Madrid and other club side as well got a win to push themselves into the round of 16. These and many more would form the crux of our conversation this morning. But remember, you can go to Facebook, go to X, follow me on this Twitter, go to TikTok as well, and hit the follow button on Spectrum TV Live. Taking a quick break now, and when we're back, sport wrap-up in full. Now we'll start with local basketball stories, where the Nigeria Basketball Federation has announced the 17-player preliminary roster for the D-Tigers ahead of the 2026 FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup qualifying tournament, with forward Ami Okonkwo leading the squad. Okonkwo was shown for Dallas Wings last season and now plays in Turkey. Leads a team that includes multiple FIBA World Cup, Olympics and WNBA experienced players. Okonkwo was 28, appeared in 8 games for the Dallas Wings during the 2025 WNBA season, after the team signed her to a hardship contract in August that was extended multiple times. Also named to the roster is guard Ezinne Kalu, who also brings some WNBA experience, after being also signed to a hardship contract by the Atlanta Dream in September 2024. Elizabeth Balogun rounds out the trio of prominent names on the preliminary list. Forward Balogun, a Lagos native who played college basketball at Duke University, brings Olympic experience from both the 2012 and 24 games. Nigeria entered the qualifiers as one of 4 continental champions, alongside Australia, Belgium and the United States. In the draw held in Metz, Switzerland, the Tigers were placed in the Lyon-Villeurbanne group alongside host France, Germany, Colombia, South Korea and the Philippines. The top 3 finishers from each of the 4 groups will advance to the main tournament. And now to tennis, where Miomir Kecmanovic earned the first top 5 win of his career on Wednesday, where he upset world number 4 Alexander Zverev 6-3, 6-7, 7-6 at the Mexican Open. The 26-year-old entered the match with a no-win record against top 5 players in the ATP rankings, yet found some of his best tennis against the 2021 champion to reach the quarterfinals. Kecmanovic struck his backhand confidently and took advantage of Zverev's deep return positioning, opening the court and holding his ground against the German's usually reliable two-handed backhand. Zverev finished with 17 backhand unforced errors compared to Kecmanovic's 6. The Serbian improved to 2-all in his ATP head-to-head series with the 24-time tour-level titleist. Into the last 8 at the hard-court ATP 500, Kecmanovic will face French lefty Terence Atmane for the first time. Atmane, on the other hand, overcame world card Rafael Jorda 6-2, 4-6, 6-1. Now to the WTA scene, where British number 3 Katie Boulter secured her 7th consecutive win on the WTA Tour as Camila Osorio retired during the 2nd round match at the Merida Open. Boulter, who won the Ostrava Open this month, had taken the first set 6-3 in Mexico when Colombian Osorio called for the physio and decided not to continue. World number 69 Boulter would face Italian top seed Jasmine Paolini or Australian Priscilla Hon in the quarterfinals tomorrow. Now to basketball, where the San Antonio Spurs beat the Toronto Raptors to extend their winning run, and closing on NBA Western Conference leaders, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Devin Vassell scored 21 points and De'Aaron Fox scored 20 as the visitors triumphed 110-107 at Scotiabank Arena to claim a 10th successive win for the first time since the 2015-2016 season. Victor Wembanyama scored only 12 points for the Spurs but made a crucial block, his fifth of the game, with 44 seconds remaining. The Spurs improved to 42 wins and just 16 losses, while the Thunder are now 45 wins and 15 losses after losing 124-116 at Eastern Conference leaders, the Detroit Pistons. Now to football, where Vinicius Jr. took center stage again with a winner that secured Real Madrid's 2-1 victory over Benfica and saved passage to the last 16 of the Champions League. The Brazilian was the alleged target of racial abuse in the first leg against Benfica, but just as he had done in Lisbon, he provided a classy finish 10 minutes from time to confirm Real's 3-1 aggregate success. Vinicius also produced the carbon copy celebration, running to the corner flag and doing a little jig to the delight of the home fans. Rafa Silva had leveled the tie from close range after 14 minutes, with Real disjointed at the back, raising thoughts of a possible upset, but Aurelien Tchouameni's first Champions League goal 2 minutes later put Real back in command. After the break, Raul Asensio headed over and Trent Alexander-Arnold fired wide before Rafa Silva's deflected effort clipped the Real Madrid crossbar. There was concern for Real, and Asensio was taken off the field on a stretcher with what appeared to be a neck injury, but the contest was finally over when Vinicius broke into an inside left position and opened his body up to stroke the ball clinically into the right-hand corner of Trubin's net. That's all we have for you this morning on Sport Wrap-Up. We'll start the main conversation proper with proper analysis into what's been happening in the world of sports. Stick around, don't go anywhere.
sports development all across the globe. It is Sports Central, brought to you courtesy of Spectrum Television this fine morning. I am Utabe David, returning with a whole lot to take a look at in the world of sports, from the world of basketball to the Niger Delta Games that is currently up and running in Edo, to the Niger Delta Games that is currently up and running in Edo State. We'll look at recent developments right there and how Team Akwa and other teams are particularly faring as regards medals that was won yesterday, and a few ones that was won in the early hours of this particular morning. The UEFA Champions League will also form crux of our conversation, with Real Madrid yesterday sealing a spot in the last 16 of the UEFA Champions League, defeating Jose Mourinho's Benfica side at the Santiago Estadio Bernabeu. Was another big conversation. Vinicius Jr., a man who was racially abused in the last game in this particular fixture, scored a goal and celebrated the same way he did in the first leg of this particular encounter. We'll take a look at a whole lot, with games expected in the UEFA Europa League as well as the Conference League as regards the second leg of the playoff rounds as well. While the earlier some fun about Itina together, we'll be doing justice to what's happening in the exciting world of sports. Good morning to you, Yvonne. We're back at it once again.
Well, good morning, UT. Excited to be back. Lots of football action to look out for. Talking about the Champions League, Victor Osimhen was on the score sheet yesterday again as his Galatasaray side had to survive what could have been a comeback scare, against Juventus. But luckily for them, now through to the round of the 16. I'm waiting for the draws here. I think it's going to be tomorrow or thereabout. We'll have the draws of the last season, and they are scheduled to either face Tottenham Hotspur or Liverpool. The question is, can Galatasaray and Victor Osimhen get past the round of 16?
Well, a big question right there. We're expecting to talk about that in no distant time. But let's first of all start off the conversation from the ongoing Niger Delta Games, as we have and had competitions yesterday, with Team Akwa also witnessing some level of progress in terms of the amount of medals being won so far in this particular competition. As yesterday we talked about 30-something medals for Team Akwa in the ongoing Niger Delta Games, but at the end of yesterday and in the early hours of this morning, we had the medals being amassed by Team Akwa up to 47. Just below Team Edo, Team Delta, Bayelsa. Then we have Akwa in the number for sports. Well, we'll be joined this morning by a seasoned sports analyst who is also in Edo State, currently witnessing the ongoing Niger Delta Games. Who will be speaking to us about the recent development and what to expect even further in those games as well. Well, Bright James joins the conversation this morning. Good morning to you, Bright James. A delight to have you join us this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good fine morning.
Well, how's Edo State this morning?
Yeah, well, the is unfolding quite nice. Right now, during the opening ceremony, the governor of the state, they're not just hosting the state. And I think you look at the map, it's a reflection of that. 102 months, but 50 gold, 30 silver, and of course 22 bronze at 7 p.m. last night. Defending champions are 47 medals in total, but 15 silver. Now, I think about now, remember, was said last year. Team Akwa finished sixth, right? And from there, level right now, massive. I took the commission of Paul Massey. Look, the Akwa process posted as part significant role in level. Bulk of the challenge here in the competition. Yesterday, for instance, completed a robust gold body towards women's singles. For that, at least a men's singles final. and that means a quite in the tennis event. Mixed doubles, women's doubles, Robasi, has got massive flooding. And if you look at the athletics, yesterday we had the final 1,500 with Heavy Okonkwo, who in place. Then second year.
Okay, right, James. We're actually struggling to, of course, get a clearer voice about what you're actually talking about. Maybe we'll have to re-establish the connection and get your thoughts once again. Thank you very much. The network is distorting your voice. But just before we have Bright James rejoin the conversation this morning, he's made mention of the fact that Team Akwa Ibom in the last edition wasn't even here in terms of the amount of medals that was amassed, and Team Akwa Ibom have also seen massive progress in terms of the number of and where they're at the table. Does this signal progress for Akwa Ibom athletes in this competition?
Definitely, I think it signals a very, very much improved progress, and we've seen Akwa Ibom doing well. We're currently fourth on the medal table, doing quite well for ourselves, and when you look at that, it shows that there's no limit to what you can achieve when you put in the right things. Recently, we've talked about the governor providing lots of training facilities, training equipment, and all of that for the athletes, and now we've seen an improved performance at Niger Delta game. Just imagine, before the next one, we have other equipment coming to play. We have an indoor arena, just like sports analysts over the world are talking about. They're quite talking about. We need bulk of this equipment and facilities to be able to compete with the likes of Team Edo, Team Bielsa, and the rest of them. So I feel progress doesn't mean you should stop just stop what you were doing at the win. It means you have to do more. They say to whom much is given, much is expected. So now we've reached this stage, we have to get even further.
Well, of course, we're still looking forward to established connection with Bright James, who's actually in Edo State and witnessing the Niger Delta games. Well, Bright James, I do not know if you're there with us. Hello, Bright James. Before we re-establish that connection, just a quick look at the medals table on the screen this particular morning. The Niger Delta Games medals table. Let's look at the top half of the table, particularly the top 9, and how teams have actually fared so far. Team Edo have amassed 50 gold medals, 30 silver, 22 bronze, as well as 102 medals in total. Team Delta is second with 91 medals in total. That's 34 gold, 26 silver, 31 bronze medal, making it 91 in total. Team Delta have 60, Team Bielsa rather, have 66 medals in total, which means 23 gold, 15 silver, 20 silver, beg for pardon, 23 bronze, and making it 66 in total. The likes of Team Akwa Ibom are number 4 in that particular medals table with 12 golds, 15 silver, 20 bronze, and 47 medals in total. Well, from Team Edo have absolutely been quite convincing, just like we've always seen about them. The National Sports Festival, the last couple of editions have been hosted in Edo State. Team Delta are also, closer to it in terms of, competition and medals won over the years. Talk about Team Bielsa as well. Team Lagos usually do well the National Sports Festival, but unfortunately they are not part of the, Niger Delta and this particular competition as well. But then again, many would say the big motivation now should be rivaling the likes of Edo State, Delta State, and Team Bielsa, maybe in the next competition. But looks like Bright James have rejoined the conversation. Well, Bright, good morning to you. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you very much, Uchi. It's a fine time to chat.
Yeah, you made mention of today being the last day at the Niger Delta Games. Walk us through about your experience so far in this particular competition.
It's a huge talent pool, Uchi, I'll tell you. From athletics to swimming to javelin, right? And javelin we had a new champion, a debutant who won the gold medal there, right? And then lots of debutants winning across different sports, right? So it's an indication that it's a new generation of talents we're discovering from this particular games. You see, I also like the fact that the different sporting federations, for instance, the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, the technical director, Gabriel Okon from Akwa is here. Yesterday, I also saw the vice president of the Tennis Federation of Nigeria. He's been here monitoring tennis. And I think that's the same thing across different sports. I met the technical lead of Scrabble as well, who's on ground to discover new talents for the respective federations. And I think that's the way to go, right? Now, I was talking about FIBA and the fact that the Accra Sports Festival hosted earlier this year. Yeah. Most of the talents discovered there have gone on to represent FIBA at this festival. And you know what that exposure means for them. Some of them have won, some of them haven't. But it's not necessarily about winning or losing. It's about the exposure and what this means for their careers going forward. And you can bet we'll have some of them at the National Sports Festival much later in the year. Who knows, maybe the All Africa Games next year, and who can say the Olympics. So it's a building block for them. And I'll tell you what, the Niger Delta is sports for choice in terms of talent across the various sports competed here.
Well, let's quickly look at still dwelling with Team Akwa Ibom. I could recall you vividly talked about progress, also weakness from the first edition of the Niger Delta Games in terms of where we are at the table, the number of medals we've amassed so far in this particular competition. Does this mean that in no distant time we can do more than what we're doing at the moment, rivaling the likes of Edo States, Bayelsa States for more medals, maybe in the third or the fourth edition of it?
All right, now, you see, I didn't quite get the question clearly, or if you talk about the talent pool from
the progress of Team Akwa Ibom
and what it means at the national scene, right? I would say the Niger Delta is at the heart of sports, right? Now, if you look at the states in the Niger Delta, they're powerhouses as far as Nigerian sports is concerned. Delta, for instance, we're talking Edo, we're talking Bayelsa, we're talking Akwa Ibom, we're talking River State. These are teams that go to the National Sports Festival and, of course, do well. Athletes from those respective states dominate the national scene. They're the ones who represent Nigeria at international competitions. We're talking the Estate Brumens, right? The Blessing Okabaris, we're talking about, the Tobiloba Amazon and the rest of them. And, they've been there dominating the Blessing Okabaris, right? They're the ones from the Niger Delta dominating internationally. So the Niger Delta is no pushover, it's a huge talent pool. But I like what the NDDC is doing, right, in the fact that last year we saw elite athletes competing in the games, the likes of FIBA. And we asked the question, we said, if the challenge is about discovering talent, then established athletes, elite athletes shouldn't be competing. And they headed to that this year, they've reduced the age to under 20. So that has allowed the opportunity of fresh talents to be discovered. And I tell you what, if they are put on the map, yesterday I spoke with, sprinting legend Mary Onyali. In the last couple of days I've also spoken with other legends. I know you're gold medalists at the Olympics.
Absolutely.
And the rest of them, Victor Ekpeba, they here also in Guadalajara, across the various sports. And they've been very keen and they've been very particular on one thing. That beyond discovering the talent and the Niger Delta Games, there should be a scholarship program or a program that places them on international tours. So they can go to other countries, experience real competition, and test their might against their contemporaries in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. And I tell you what, if that's done, and if that's the template adopted, right, particularly from Mary Onyali, I spoke with her yesterday, if that's adopted, I tell you what, these lads who are very young and I discovered early will dominate not just Africa, but of course will be world beaters in the next couple of years.
Interesting roadmap rather. We just hope that implementation will be done, and not just about, of course, making words, but implementation is what we're looking forward to. But being the last day of the Niger Delta Games, walk us through about the events we're expecting today. Are we still expecting games being the last day, or will it just be the closing ceremony?
Just for close-up, there's football this morning for the male and female, right? Edo are competing. They're playing on Edo this morning at the Crescent Sports Facility, right? There's a football women's event as well. There's chess, and those are just a few events expected to wrap up at the Niger Delta Games. The closing ceremony is for later today, and we're expecting the who is who in Nigerian sports to be here. The governor of Edo State should be back in the state and should be a part of Also expecting the delegation from the president, who was representing the opening ceremony by Senator John Owan and a former Minister of Sports in the country, or our Senate President was represented by Senator Okonkwo from Cross River State. And the leadership of the National Sports Commission is also here. We hear, Honorable Bokolo Olakbade is in the state to be a part of this closing ceremony. So it's a whole lot expected in terms of, the who is sport in this country, and of course the top sport administrators. So it's a whole lot, and the athletes have enjoyed themselves. Most of them, it's the first time they're ever competing at a tournament like this, and we're hoping that the experience they gather from here help them in their respective areas going forward.
Thank you very much, Bright James. We just hope that this will also pave way for athletes from the South region of the country to represent Nigeria, not just on the continental phase, but even at the international stage. Thank you very much for joining.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you. Thank you, team.
Thank you very much. Von, you've actually heard what he said. Yeah. It's about, of course, implementation process, trying to ensure that these athletes are actually keep on their toes. Yeah. And he's made mention of a few things that stand out for me. Courses that would actually, have these athletes compete, not just with their contemporaries right here in the country, but even at the international stage. And we're looking forward to implementation.
Well, we hope it comes, because out here, one thing our athletes lack in Nigeria is all about that progression. Because
you just play one tournament, you're the best, and then you go back home.
Exactly, because now he's talked about the reduction in the age.
To 20, under 20.
Means probably the next year or next 2 years, both of these athletes wouldn't even be eligible for this particular competition. So what happens then? You just let them, go back to their houses and continue with their normal life? That's the question. That's when the scholarship programs come in. That's where the rest of Europe and the rest of the world have done better than us. Bulk of the NBA athletes you see now, they went through the college system. Bulk of the athletes running for America now, they've gone through the collegiate system. That's why we've got the likes of Emmanuel Enekwechi. We've got a lot of them from Nigeria doing well, because they've gone over there, gone through the college system. So I feel we need to have scholarship programs for these athletes, because bulk of them would not be able to afford it by themselves. That's where the scholarship comes in. So we need to see more. We hope that implementation comes in.
Implementation process is what we're looking forward to. And as the Niger Delta Games draws closer, also expecting that all of this that have been planned will be implemented at the end of it. But we'll move away from the Niger Delta Games conversation and take a look at our national team. It has to do with the D Tigers of Nigeria, as we hear that the provisional list for the ladies ahead of their women's FIBA basketball qualifying tournament have been officially released by head coach of this side. Talk about Coach Ren Wakama. Well, top ladies are making headlines already. One of such being Okonkwo. If you recall her, I think the last two, FIBA Continental showpiece, she's arguably been one of the best players of the tournament. So, to a large extent, we're also expecting a wealth of experience to be part of this particular conversation. Rena Wakama have actually listed regular names right here, not just Okonkwo alone. Ezinne Kalu is also part of the conversation, as well as Rita Ibokwe also being part of it. Well, for the last time Nigeria, appeared at the Women's Basketball World Cup was in 2018, and that was in Spain. They've actually had two previous, occasions where they've appeared at the World Cup in 2006. That was in Brazil, and in 2018, and that was in Spain. They'll be hoping to make it to the next World Cup, and it starts from the qualifiers. They have to do better.
Well, I think I've got trust in Rena Wakama and the girls. Talking about Okonkwo, is in the Kalu, the rest of them, they're in the form of their lives, so we're expecting them to bring that quality they've showcased. Bulk of them, about 3 of them have already played for WNBA
Absolutely.
Sides. Not currently playing now, but they've got that experience, so it's something to count for them. So we're expecting these sides to, these players to transition, bring that wealth of experience, bring it home here, integrate with the girls. Though the competition is not here, though, we're going to play against different countries. I think about 5 countries in Nigeria's group already. And the winners of each group would progress to the FIBA World Cup proper. And I look at the group that contains Nigeria, I think it's possible for Rena Wakama.
France, South Korea, Germany, those are top nations.
Yes, but I think it's possible. At least we don't have really top basketballing names. Maybe France would be the biggest one of them. But I feel the Nigerian girls, Rena Wakama is someone I really believe in. And I think she's got got the mettle to get these girls over the line. Let's just hope it happens for her.
Well, we just expect it happens for Rena Wakama's ladies. They will be taking on France, Germany, South Korea, Colombia, and even the Philippines in the qualifying event. And we hear the qualifying event is set to take place from the 11th of March to the 17th of March in Lyon, France, to be very particular. Well, France have got a upper hand right here. They will open their qualifying campaign against Colombia, followed by games against South Korea, and then we'll be looking at the Philippines before France, and then Germany being the last in this particular qualifying edition of it. We just hope that ladies will do better. We keep following proceedings before the start of the qualifiers. But quickly away from that now, straight to the world of tennis. The Mexican Open would be our next conversation, where Momira Kekmanovic got the better of Alexander Zverev in the Acapulco Open in Mexico. Well, conversation has been about Alexander Zverev trying to do better, but unfortunately he's knocked out of this particular competition. Well, Vonnie's a top seed in this competition, but then a big knockout from the man Kekmanovic. Many didn't see this coming, but then again, it happened against the German international.
Well, very disastrous for Alexander Zverev. It's not really been at the best of his life. I think joining from last year to the beginning of this year, it's not really done well. Big Australian Open, he reached the semi-final, lost the eventual winner, Carlos Alcaraz. Many expected him to go here. He used it as a bounce back and create the stamina of intent that he's coming for more titles. But now he's been knocked out of the competition already. It's all about resetting, going for the next one, and hopefully maybe that one would be the one that gives him another third level title, because he's won lots of them. He's only been unable to win, the big ones, the ATP Masters and all of that. But let's see if the next one will be the lucky one for Alexander Zverev.
Well, of course, other games also took center stage in the early hours of yesterday. Mattia Bellucci upset Davidovich Fokina to book, a game against Francis Tiafoe. By the way, Francis Tiafoe saved 2 match points to progress to the next round of the competition. Talon Grigspor upset the second seed Alexander Bublik in this game, while Stan Wawrinka, the iconic figure, beats farewell to Dubai Championship after he was knocked out against Daniel Medvedev in that particular game. But just one more conversation before we talk about football quickly. The San Antonio Spurs have extended their winning run to close the gap on the Thunders. Well, from yesterday, we were just talking about this side being the second best side after the OKC. And it just looks like they keep building momentum and confidence every single game, and it happened once again.
Now they've got 42 wins.
42.
The OKC,
I think that's 3 behind the OKC.
The OKC are still at 45. They lost this morning to the Detroit Pistons, who are leading the Eastern Conference. The OKC and the Spurs are both in the Western Conference, so it's going to be a very, very close battle. I think it gets even more exciting now, because the Spurs are doing so well. The OKC would also not want to relinquish their sport, but at the end of it, both sides are going to make it to the playoffs, like it or not. They are definitely going to make it to the playoffs. So I'm excited to see what they'll be able to do right there. But for the Spurs, it's been a very slow season for them. Slow and steady, almost as if no one even expected them to do it. But now look at where they are. The last time they had this particular run of form was in 2015-2016 season. So that shows you that it's been a long time since the Spurs were considered the top franchise in the NBA. But finally, likes of Victor Wembanyama, they are on Fox. They're gradually getting the sports side back to the glory days. And the funny thing is, Victor Wembanyama had just 12 points this morning, but other players were able to rally up the points and get them to win. So it shows that's not just a one-man team. It's also about the core of the team being able to shore up the scoring responsibilities. Good for the San Antonio Spurs.
Well, good for the San Antonio Spurs. We hit a very short break right here. When we return, football conversation continues. To stay with us. Just come. Welcome back. It is Seal Sports Central right here. Straight to the world of football, starting off the conversation with the Super Falcons, where they have already begun training ahead of their two-legged friendly matches against the Indomitable Lionesses of Cameroon in Yaoundé, to be very precise. Well, as at the early hours of this morning, we hear 15 players already in camp, and they had their first training session about yesterday in the evening, and they will have more training sessions later today. Some players that are still yet to arrive are expected and are scheduled to arrive much later today in preparation for the friendly match. The first leg would happen on Saturday, and the second will happen later on Tuesday. We look forward to those games. We'll talk more about it much later tomorrow when we return. But we had an outstanding game for Rivers United in the Nigeria Premier Football League. They were able to get the better of Battle FC in this particular fixture. 1-0. It ended in favor of Rivers United, and with that particular result, Rivers United have returned back to the top of the MPFL table, and they've still got about 3 more outstanding matches to play. So it means if they win all 3, then we'll be talking about unassailable lead at the top of the MPFL table for a side led by coach Finidi George. But let's move away from there and look at the UEFA Champions League quickly, where we had teams, progressing to the next stage of the competition. One of such team was Atalanta, shocking Borussia Dortmund to advance to the next stage of the last 16, which is the UEFA Champions League. Well, fun. Many didn't see this coming, because heading into this encounter, Borussia Dortmund with 2-0 up against Atalanta. But at the moment, it looks like Atalanta were quite prepared and ready to take Borussia Dortmund, and they did just that yesterday.
Oh, definitely. I think I was shocked. I think Atalanta are the only Italian team now.
Yeah, left. 16. Yeah.
So it shows you how good they've been. And it signals something that, you have to put it all out there on the field. Dortmund didn't really look like they needed it. A 4-1 win by Atalanta, and it shows that, you've got to always give it out on the pitch. Congratulations to them. Some would have expected that after Ademilik when left the side, they would struggle a bit, but looks like they've managed to start winning games just immediately the man left the side. Kudos to them. Let's see them in the round of 16.
Juventus, also another conversation where Victor Osimhen, had a goal. At some point, this game was actually 3-0.
Yeah.
And it looked like Juventus would be still in it until Victor Osimhen and his teammates scored 2 more goals to advance to the last 16.
Yeah.
It would have been so heartbreaking.
Definitely. I didn't expect that at all, because Juventus had a red card.
Absolutely.
They had a red card, I think, in the 48 minutes of the game. So I expected, Galatasaray to have, to start scoring goals as at then, but it didn't happen. 2 more goals by Juventus, even with a man down. And Osimhen at the end of the match came out to say he demands more from the club side. Shows that Galatasaray are still far away from the best of the best in the world. They've got a few good players, Victor Osimhen, Leroy Sané, but the rest of them are aging players. Gundogan, talking about Lucas Torreira, people who've done their bits in top 5 leagues now, they're retiring there. So I feel Galatasaray would have to do more. And their next game is against Tottenham Hotspur, or Liverpool. I just hope it's Tottenham Hotspur.
Well, of course, Paris Saint-Germain with 3-2 winners over AS Monaco, Vivas Varascalia, and the man Marquinhos both scored for the side, while Koulibaly for AS Monaco was red-carded in the 58th minute of the game, while PSG advanced 5-4 on aggregates. Well, Real Madrid was another game at the Estadio Santiago Bernabeu. They were 2-1 winners over Benfica, advancing 3-1 on aggregate scoreline. Finally, it looks like Vinicius Junior vindicated himself with another goal at the Bernabeu.
Definitely. He really enjoyed himself yesterday. That game started just almost the same way the other one started. Benfica with the one asking both of the questions. But immediately
they actually scored first, as a matter of fact.
Exactly. Immediately Orange Mini equalized that particular game. I knew it was done and dusted. Real Madrid continued to progress and make more short and target than Benfica. Vinicius Junior capped it off with that fine goal, and it shows that it's not just you don't racially abuse people. Football is not about race. A black man could also be as good as a white man. I'm happy to see Vinicius Junior score more goals. Let's see how Real Madrid will do. Progressing. Some would say not really convincing performance across both legs against a team like Benfica. So what happens if you get to meet Manchester City? What happens if you meet Barcelona? What happens if you meet a top team next? Let's see if Alvaro Arbeloa can get this thing firing again.
Well, Cristiano Ronaldo, a goal helped, Al Nassr top the Saudi League just yesterday. The man converted from the panel to sports, and it looks like it has been rosy for him. Since he returned from revolting against the club side, he scored on 3 consecutive matches now, and he keeps increasing his tally He wants to smash that 1,000 goal mark, and it just looks like it is very possible before he finally retires. Well, FIFA says they have complete confidence about Mexico, hosting some of the World Cup games. They have been unrest in Mexico at the moment, about some of the internal crisis with some groups, but it looks like FIFA is still saying no problems. The World Cup can still go on, even with all of this unrest. We hear they actually have a friendly match today, but then it will still go down in Mexico as planned, and no shifting of date. Manchester United, a post-profit, but debt rises to 1.3 billion euros is the conversation in the English Premier League. But today the Europa League will return. That will be the second leg of the Europa League playoff round across different ends. Well, two Premier League sides will actually be playing. One in the Europa League tonight, while the other in the Conference League. Well, for the Europa League, it would be Nottingham Forest against Fenerbahce. They already have a 3-0 lead heading into the City Ground against Fenerbahce, while Crystal Palace in the other game will take on Monster FC, and both sides are actually tied on the same margin heading to the game at the Selhurst Park. So both sides have equal opportunities of progressing to the next stage of the competition. But here we draw the curtains on today's edition of Sports Central. Thank you very much for being a part of the show, joining via social media platforms. Thank you very much, and for also being a part.
Pleasure as always.
We'll return tomorrow, and definitely we'll be talking more about football developments as well as sports across the globe. I am Mutabe David, and have a fabulous day. Bye for now.